Part of the issue is, if you have a trading strategy like yours, Kev, you get an Apple, for example, called away from you because the stock has been on this 9-day in a row intraday high streak, the market cap approaching $4 trillion. It's been a runaway freight train, to borrow Pasquarello's phrasing again. You did have the stock called away. Can you give us more details?
Yeah, I feel like we went over this same trade a year ago, and
I remember.
This is the 10th time in the past 13 years that we've had our Apple position called away in its entirety. And you never like to see it go because we love the company, but from a valuation standpoint, I'll give you a few stats as to why we might be able to get a re-entry point a little bit lower. And going back in history, of the 9 previous instances in which this has happened, 7 of them we were able to get back in at Apple at lower prices, in some cases much lower. There were 2 times, Scott, where we just had to go back in and pay up a little bit. Now, I didn't brag about those 2 instances, but number 10, we have to wait to be seen. But over the past 3 years, we haven't really seen the earnings growth or the revenue growth that we have with some of these other Mag 7s. I mean, you're talking about probably 10% revenue growth. In the 12 months ending in 2021 September, they did $366 billion. Same time period this year, it was $390 billion. So it's not as explosive as we might think. If you like to look at multiples, the multiples are a little bit stretched on the trailing, a little bit stretched on the forward. So we may get a chance to buy this stock back. Stay tuned. We'll see what happens with number 10.
You'll see if you get a pullback. Yeah, but it's been a runaway express, and the price target today goes to 260 at Baird. The price target goes to 273 from Woodring at Morgan Stanley. This thing's been pretty much incredible, right? And some have suggested, I raised the question to Woodring the other day, whether, Tim Cook's been so deft in how he's navigated his relationship with then President Trump, and now we'll see what the residual impact of that.
Xi as well.
Sure. We'll see what the impact now is with Trump, in the White House yet again, but he's deftly managed that. And that's not lost on people who follow the stock either. And then now, if you just assume that the upgrade cycle is going to take hold, sooner now rather than later, we've been waiting a while. What's to keep this stock down?
Yeah, so I had thought when they talked about Apple Intelligence, this would be the biggest upgrade cycle ever. And I still think that's going to be the case. And the move you've seen recently in the stock is, I believe, highly correlated to the new release of ChatGPT and Gemini. Mm-hmm. So we've seen now they are adding that AI functionality. If you read Joanna Stern in the Wall Street Journal, who I highly recommend, she said, look, we're finally getting there, but is there enough reason to go out and buy the phone just yet for this? And she said, I wouldn't, basically. But nonetheless, it's coming. So they'll put these incremental advancements with AI, and I think that'll keep the stock going. And so even if they have another squishy quarter, I don't think it matters, because that's what's happening to the fundamentals.
Bryn, what do you see when you look at this stock? Again, let's just underscore. $3.75 trillion. It's getting closer to becoming the first $4 trillion company ever.
So I had said, for the past couple of months, I think Apple would move along with the market. And so if you look at, the Qs, the S&P are getting close to the Qs are at 30%. Apple's around the same. And so I think it's moving along with the market. I own it. I have all the products, but I do.
I wonder if that's backwards. I wonder if the market's moving along with Apple.
Yeah, that could be the case, right? Because it is such a big constituent of both. So you're spot on. I do think, though, that in Apple, we get that they juice their earnings because they do so many buybacks. But ultimately, you do want to see revenue growth actually start to come in and be in there. And so I think, to Kevin's point, he's seen, he got called away. I think that he could easily get back in the name. And so I do think there's a lot of theoretical things that are going to happen with the Apple AI. They've had a good history of delivering wonderful products. It seems these are not their products, though. These are ChatGPT products. I'm just not sure. And so I would be open to the idea that when earnings come out over the next 2 quarters, if we don't see a pickup in the 16 and we're not actually seeing a push through of anything monetarily in the earnings, does it then deserve to have the continued market performer, whether it's leading or lagging, it's following along with it. I think that's an important question for 2025.
Hey, Josh, what do you make of, speaking of mega caps that are on the run, Alphabet, up 10% this week alone?
Yeah. I probably should have waited to trim it by a week, but that's how the ball bounces. Can I go back and say one thing on Apple? This is the most incredible thing. The largest, most famous investor in the world basically liquidated his position, and the stock responded to that by rallying 25%. This is just, we have never seen anything, we have never seen a stock like this ever, inclusive of NVIDIA, just given how long this has been going on for, this rally, how large the company is. And it almost works regardless of the feedback on product, because this iPhone was not particularly well received. Nobody was blown away by the embedded AI tech. Maybe they will be as things develop. And the stock worked anyway. And it just calls into question so much of what market pundits chatter about when they try to linearly connect a product cycle with a stock price. It just very often, Apple in particular, just very often defies what any of us think is the way the market actually works. So I think it deserves to just be mentioned how remarkable the second half of this year has been for Apple.